Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chasing Goals podcast. I'm not even sure what episode we're up to. I'm pretty sure it's number 7. But here we go. We got Jessica Clark, or Jess. How are we going today? You feeling good?
Yeah, feeling good. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thanks so much for coming on. Do you want to maybe just, before we kind of get stuck into what we're going to talk about, want to introduce yourself, just let everyone know kind of what you do, your background in both your business and kind of your like strength training?
Yeah, sure. So, I joined the first gym like coming into strength training probably about 10 years ago. Um, I was never sporty, fit. I used to like actively run away from PE or any sort of sport as a child or a teenager. I spent the majority of my sort of late teens, even when I first joined the gym, doing like going out twice a week, going out and then eating a whole pizza and just not really taking good care of myself at all. Um, I think I probably got into strength training probably in my early 20s.
Okay. Yeah.
I met some good people and they pointed me in the right direction. I had some coaching. Um, just kind of fell in love with it. Like, this is what I should be doing, not only for myself, but for other people. I want to help other people transition into that feeling like they don't feel good in themselves, in their bodies, in their person, and get them to a point where they feel like they, not even like aesthetically, but just that they feel good. I think that was the biggest thing that I found, was that I felt so much better in myself. I was more confident. I was sleeping better. My skin was better. So then I went to uni and qualified as so I went through and did my level 3 and my level 4. So I was working a lot with GP referral clients, so people who have got long-term health conditions. Um, and I was working with local government to do that and supporting their kind of health scheme. Um, and then I went fully self-employed just before COVID. So that was some good timing. Learn a lot about myself and a lot about myself in business then. So yeah, I've been a self-employed coach for coming up to 3.5 years now. And
Awesome.
I would not go back to being employed now. I love working for myself. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
kind of like very happy where I am now.
and then, there's a couple of things I want to touch on from that, like how like it's awesome you're working for yourself now and then that sort of thing. But just going back to what you said about kind of how better or how good you felt after you kind of first joined the gym and started getting those like health benefits. It's kind of something that if you can kind of feel it when you might not go to the gym for a week or a week and a half, 2 weeks, and you might eat bad or whatever, have a few drinks or whatever, and then you just feel just so bad, and so your skin kind of plays up, but then you get back to the gym and it might take 1 or 2 sessions and it kind of makes you feel so much better. And I think we don't kind of push that much, maybe, or we don't push it as much as we should in society. That if maybe just getting out in the sun or lifting some weights or going for a run or whatever you want to do can change your mood and can change how you're feeling just like that. So I feel like we need to push that a bit more in society. But I'm definitely it's out there now, obviously with all the Instagram stuff. But it's something that I think is a good takeaway from what you said just before, for sure.
Yeah, I think something that I've learned is that most people often will join a gym for aesthetic purposes more often than not. Like, I think we're definitely seeing more of a push for like movement for health and movement for mental health, which I'm a big advocate for, and that, move in a way that feels good for you. There's no right way to move. Everyone should just do something that makes them feel good. But initially we get that sort of you get that contact with people because they want to change how they look, or they want to sort of like lose a bit of weight, or they want to gain a bit of muscle, whatever their personal goals are. And actually, I found working with clients and just speaking to people on the gym floor that although that's the initial reason that they come to the gym, the other benefits then start to outweigh the aesthetic stuff, and the aesthetic
Yeah,
stuff is just like an added bonus.
yeah, for sure. And then I guess that's the thing. Like they get the initial aesthetics and that sort of thing, but then it kind of turns to and like you want to obviously keep them in there them to be a lifer. Like you want them to go to the gym and be healthy for the rest of their life. You just don't want a 8 to 10 week thing and then they're out. You kind of want to keep them in there. So how do you? Yes, it's good to have an aesthetic goal and that sort of thing, but also having those different, strength goals and maybe, if you want to do, if you're a runner or whatever, cardio goals, and the kind of maybe gives them another, because I think it can be hard if you're just chasing aesthetics and it's, you see yourself every day, so it's hard to see the improvements. But if you can see yourself, go up 5 kilos on your deadlift, or you've improved 10 seconds on a run or something like that, I think it might keep people around and that sort of things. That's definitely, definitely a great thing that, what we should be trying to keep people there type thing. So, but then also I wanted to touch on your business. How did you kind of make that transition? Because I know it's quite hard from, I guess, were you working full-time beforehand and then doing your business? Was there a transition phase where you're doing both, and then you how did you make that leap? Because I feel like that's a relevant topic for a lot of people.
Yeah, so I was actually in a really fortunate position. So my full-time role for the local government was actually a maternity cover.
Okay.
So I was only ever in like a year's contract. And then the woman who I was covering for, when she came back, she wanted to do part-time. So then I transitioned into a part-time role. And it was just good timing. Like I took on 2 days a week or 2.5 days a week with that job. And then the gym that I work at now opened at the same time. So then I went into being self-employed there, but I had to give that gym 12 hours. So I was doing 12 hours of like paid work at that gym.
Okay.
And then 2.5 days of employed work. And then the rest of my time was filled with clients. So I stayed in that part-time role with the local government. I think I was there in my part-time from September, and then I handed my notice in the December. So in that small period of time, I'd got to a point where I was giving too much of myself, spreading myself too thin. And it kind of came down to, what do I want to do in a year's time, 2 years' time? And I always knew that I wanted to do full-time coaching. And it took a lot of convincing. I spoke with a friend of mine she's a business mentor, my partner who's been a coach, and it was this, I don't know if it's the right time. Like, what if I don't get the clients? What if I don't fill the spaces? Which I think is a very common theme with people wanting to go self-employed. It's like, what if I don't? But then the constant thing I was being met with was, but what if you do? And you find a way. Like, it sounds so easy to say, but once you open out that time, I mean, I was living in the gym. I was here all the time. I was speaking to everyone. And I'm quite a chatty person by nature, so it wasn't hard for me to speak to people just as they were walking through the door. And, as soon as you give that time, you'll only not be successful if you choose not to be. If you choose not to put the time into your business, then it's very easy to not fill the spaces. So then I went fully self-employed in that January. I did a year of still doing the shift work and the coaching. And then just before COVID, I just gave up the shift work and just went fully into coaching.
Yeah, and I think that's that's awesome, and it's such a cool thing. And now you're doing something that you love as well, because I feel like we got to put a bit of obviously you got to make money, you got to pay bills and that sort of stuff. But if you can go to work doing something you love, you're going to be willing to do that more and put in more time and effort if you love it. So you're going to do the extras, do the Instagram, Facebook, chat, go the extra mile, all that sort of stuff that you probably wouldn't do if you didn't love what you're doing. So, and then it's also that thing where you've got I feel like no matter if you're starting a business when you're 30, 40 or whatever it is, you probably need to start that, and you kind of need that other sort of money coming in. It's got to be like a side hustle thing where you kind of working at it at night time or on the weekend, and then you can slowly kind of, what you kind of did is filter it out, and then once you feel like, oh, I might be able to take this full time, and then go and attack it. So yeah, that's awesome. I thought it'd be a good insight, and it was perfect. Maybe can we touch on, maybe we'll go into your training, or maybe we'll just see how was the comp day, and how did it all go with the comp day? And then we'll pull back to your training, kind of how you got into it.
Yeah, comp day was great. It chaotic and powerlifting meets it's like, loads of time and then all of a someone's wrapping your knees and you're like, oh, okay, it's time to go. We were in a really unfortunate position in the comp ran from Tuesday to Sunday, so they had like different categories on each day, and they kind of put most of the women on the Friday, um, and they had more competitors than they were anticipating, so they had to split the day into two. So they had the morning competitors who were lifting between 9 and 3, and then the evening competitors who were lifting between 5 and 10:30.
Okay.
So I was in the evening, but one of my friends was in the morning, so it was just a really long day. I didn't start lifting until 5 o'clock. I think my first squat was at about 10 past 5, and then my last deadlift was at 20 past 10. So it was just a really and I'm a morning person. I get up at 5 for clients, so
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
me having to stay up and train at half 10 at night, I was kind of sat there like popping Pro Plus, like, come on, we've got to get this done. But it was great. I compete with the AWPC, which is the Amateur World Powerlifting Congress, and their English branch, which is the British Amateur Powerlifting Union, they put on an excellent they organized it so well. It was just everything ran really well. We knew where we needed to be at what time. We had competitors from Finland, competitors from Poland, from India, Canada. So
Yeah.
it was just a
Awesome.
really, really good environment. Like everybody, the thing with powerlifting is even though it's an individual sport, everybody wants everyone to do well. And
Yeah.
you can see someone who is your competitor on the platform and you still want them to get the lift. So
Yeah.
it was an amazing day, and I love watching powerlifting. So I was kind of sat there watching everyone go, and then it was like, oh, I think I need to lift now. Hang on.
It's my turn.
Yeah.
And I get, how do you kind of prepare? Obviously, so with food and that sort of stuff, do you take your own food in, or is there food supplied, or how does it kind of work that with obviously going to eat and that sort of stuff?
So they do provide food. There is like a menu, but so my partner actually manages my nutrition for me. So
Okay.
his qualifications kind of branch out into the nutrition for athletes. So he manages all of that. So, we actually took our own food. So we were taking lots of kind of like easily digestible food, things just like plain white rice. And then we had like sugar for in between lifts.
Yeah.
So most meets will provide some sort of food, but
You.
I usually take my own just to be so that I know what I'm having at what
Yeah. Yeah. For
time.
sure.
So we just had things like plain white rice. We had some like protein bars. We had some sugar. We had like some little like chicken sandwiches that were just easily like tiny little cubes that I could just kind of like digest quickly. Lots of malt loaf, lots of squares bars, just anything that was quick.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And can we? How do we go in this meet?
I did well. Yeah. I did well. So I won by 2.5 kilos. So I
Congratulations.
am now, thank you very much. I'm now the AWPC World Champion, which it baffles me. Even I kind of feel like it's not real, kind of waiting for somebody to come and be like, oh, actually, there was a mistake. Like, you didn't win.
Yeah, I was looking. It looked like lots of fun and that sort of stuff. But I saw your list that you posted on your Instagram and that sort of thing. It would have been crazy. Were you like, obviously you won and obviously that was awesome. But were you happy with each individual lift and like what your goals like kind of you set out to do?
Yeah, so I did my national meet in July. So it was quite a quick turnaround between
Yeah.
July and September from nationals to worlds. And I missed all top three of my lifts in July. So I missed my top lifts. And that was my main goal is I wanted to hit the lifts that I missed.
Yeah.
Um, my squats during my prep were just flying, out
Okay.
of nowhere. Something just clicked and things were going really, really well. So I missed the 170 in July, but then about 3 weeks before training, I did a 172.5 for a double. So we were like, okay, that we're clearly working above that
Yeah,
now.
yeah, for sure.
Um, we also then found out that 172.5 was the world record for that federation,
Oh yeah,
um, which was really cool. So we were like, okay, like let's try and push that then.
yeah,
So I ended up doing a 175 as my top lift and took the world record
yeah.
for all of about 2 minutes until another competitor came in and took it by 500 grams. So when
Oh,
it's
you
a world
kidding?
record, you can chip. So she did a 175.5, and fair play to her. She played the game, she
Yeah,
watched what I
yeah.
did, and then she added another 500 grams to it. Um,
So
I,
you
I,
have
I
to.
was
Sorry, keep going. Sorry, I cut you off.
no, no, no. I was just gonna say like I was not very sportsmanly about it.
Yeah, yeah,
I did say congratulations to her at the end, but in that sort of like
yeah. During
quick
the
two
time,
minutes, I was raging.
you know what?
But
That's
yeah,
probably
squats
you
went
probably
really
need
well.
that competitive juice. So you want obviously at the end of the time you're like, oh, congrats, but during that time, it might have gave you a little bit extra for the. Is squats
God, yeah.
at the start? Is squats the first lift? Is
Yeah.
it bench then dead? Is that how it
Yeah, so
rolls? Yeah,
squats bench dead. So I did 175. They offered me a fourth attempt to try and push the record further. But the fourth attempt wouldn't have gone towards my total. It would have
yeah.
just been a record.
And it would have
And I
thrown off
kind of
your type. You kind of
exactly
yeah,
I was like, I can either push it or I can commit to my other lifts.
yeah,
And I really wanted to get the lifts that I missed. So I was really happy with my bench. Bench and I are not friends. I hate bench press. It is just like I don't know what it is. I had a shoulder injury way back in March, and it's kind of just it's been one of these things that I've really had to manage. My shoulder was not a problem at all. And everything just lined up on the day. So I hit all three of my bench lifts, which was great. That's what I
yeah,
wanted to do. My main goal for bench was to keep my glutes on the bench because that is my biggest issue. I always lift my glutes.
yeah.
So I did that. It was great. I wanted a 175 for my deadlift. I missed my last deadlift. I ended up just getting my second, which was 170. Um, but I was still happy with my performance because I went up to that bar and I think I held on to it for about 10 seconds before
Oh
I
yeah.
clocked out. Yeah, I just like there's a video somewhere of me just literally holding on for dear life. And then it was actually the judge behind who was like, I think you're done. I just couldn't,
Stop.
it wasn't
Please
moving.
stop.
Um, but it was just it literally felt like someone had super glued it to the floor. But I gave everything, but I was
Yeah.
depleted. I just like and the thing with powerlifting is I could make as many excuses as I want. I wasn't, I wasn't fed. It was too late in the day. At the end of the day, I just wasn't strong enough to pick it up. Like I'd done so much before that I didn't have
Yeah.
anything left. So I'd wish I'd got a little bit more for my deadlift, but I wanted a 420 total, which is what I left with. So
Oh, great. Yeah.
I got what I wanted, so I'm happy.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, congrats again. That's so good. And then I guess I might even ask you now, like, what's kind of planned moving forward, and then we'll go back to maybe into your training and kind of how you obviously had a quick turnaround and how you kind of prepared. So, what is plans moving forward? Obviously, you've just won the world champs, but what is a little bit of a break, or you straight back into it?
Yeah, so I'm taking a bit of a break. I'm actually on holiday next week, so I'm going to have like a full, not even in a gym week,
Yeah.
which would be nice. And then I'm going to just do a bit of like a bridge week, so just get back into some movement, just do what feels good for my body. And then I'm going to be doing a little bit more hypertrophy.
Yeah.
So, I'll just build a good foundation. I might be moving up a weight class next year. Um, so we are considering kind of like building some muscle under there and seeing what my weight is at that point, and then deciding whether we go up a weight class.
Because how big's because you 69 kilos, is that right? Is that what I read?
So yeah, so that my weight category is 67.5. So I weighed in at 65
Okay.
because I did a water cut, but I naturally sit at about 69 kilos. That's like my happy weight, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. And then what is the jump? Are they big? Are they big gaps, or are they quite small when you jump up in weight classes?
So It depends. So I'm a 67.5. The one down is a 60, but the one up is a 75. So
Okay.
like as you get lower, the jumps get smaller, but as you get higher, they kind of are about 7 kilos.
Yeah.
So I would just need to be kind of
Quite a
between
lot, isn't
70
it?
and 75.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I naturally sit at about 69 kilos, which is a good weight for me, and then I just water cut down,
Yeah.
and I still perform really well. But to be competitive as a 75 kilo lifter, I would probably need to sit above 75
I was
kilos.
about to say, you
So
probably need around
I'd
like
be
77
looking
or
at
something,
like
no?
10 kilos,
Yeah.
which is a big jump. And like, I mean, I'm 5'7", so for my height as a powerlifter, I'm more suited to weigh more.
Yeah.
But carrying an extra 10 kilos around is a lot. So it just
Yeah.
depends like how I can do that, whether it's like, if I want a bigger bench, I'm going to have to build some shoulders and some arms, and
Yeah. Yeah.
which is fine. But then it's like I also have to work 16-hour days. And if I'm carrying 10 kilos around, is that going to be too much for me? Am I actually just better off being a bit leaner? Um, there's no way of knowing until we try it.
Yeah. For sure. And I guess before we pop in, I might as well put how do you manage, I guess, obviously you're trying to gain your strength and that sort of stuff, but trying to manage your weight and staying at the same. Obviously, how do you train towards that so you can keep the same weight, but you're not going over your weight class, but you're gaining strength and that sort of stuff? Do you want to touch on kind of what you're kind of doing?
Yeah, so after my qualifier, which was in March, we kind of made the decision that I was going to come up in weight, and we were going to push for the numbers. So I actually came up to 71 kilos,
Okay.
kind of between March and July. Um, just really pushed to get my numbers right up. I mean, so my qualifier in March, my top squat was 135, and then my top squat at Brits in July was 5. So I put 30 kilos on my squat in like hardly any time, because I just basically ate. I just ate and trained and ate and trained. Um, but in order for me to then weigh in at my weight class, about 4 weeks before, I kind of just started to bring my calories down. So I was bringing my weight down to around 68. So I came down to, I think I was 68.7 before I started my water cut.
Okay.
And then I can usually shift about 4 kilos on a water cut. So I weighed in under with no problem.
Yeah, and did you find when you were on that way down? So did you say you got to about 71 and you kind of cut it down to 68.7 or whatever it was? Did you find your training or obviously because you're on a deficit, you're going to have less energy and all that sort of stuff? Did you find your training kind of had any like did you have more road bumps, or was it kind of smooth sailing? How'd you kind of feel during that time?
Um, for lack of a better term, trash. I felt like trash. Um, it, it's really hard because you kind of like when you're eating calories to obviously fuel your training, and you're getting these numbers and it's great, and then you're in a deficit and you're tired. And like I had training day calories, so like I would have more carbs on my training days, but
Yeah.
it's still harder to perform at the same level. So
Sure. Yeah.
I was like getting under a barbell and giving, RPE 10 to something that would have been an RPE 8 about a month before. Um, but we kind of knew we something had to give. So it
Yeah.
was okay, the prep might be a little bit more rocky and things might feel harder, but we know that the strength is there. So then as soon as I've weighed in and I replenish and start to eat again, I'll be fine. So I think on comp day I weighed in. So I weighed in at 64.8 for my weigh in, and then by the time I stepped onto platform, I was back at 68.5.
Yeah.
So I'd
Okay.
kind of like just replenished everything.
Do you weigh in the
Um,
morning or the night before?
the day before, so
Day
24
before.
hours before.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a full day. And I was like obviously severely dehydrated the day before
Yeah.
as well. So as soon as you drink anything, it just comes straight back in.
But I guess that's why you kind of like it's part of the game, isn't it? Like you've got to and you've got to see that, and you obviously you've got your coach and that sort of thing. That you've got to see that with when you have, I guess, weight categories and that sort of stuff, you've got to that's part of the planning and part of the whole thing, and that's kind of probably a little bit of, obviously it sucked at the time, but the bit of the fun in having weight classes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like I've been really fortunate with where I am, and like I've trained obviously very hard, but there's going to be a point where because of my height, I kind of reach a ceiling because I'm not going to be able to put on any more muscle, because then even with a water cut, my weight is still going to be too high. But like it is part of the fun. Like I'm like, okay, now I need to be stronger, so I'm going to
Yeah.
need to be bigger, and that's fine. Like I would rather be bigger and more competitive than be kind of just scraping the surface of the lower class.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I guess that's kind of yeah. I guess it's all fun and games, isn't it? And that's what you do, and you love it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, saying to like if you'd have probably said to me a year ago, right, Jess, I need you to eat 3,500 calories because you need to eat, I'd have been like, oh my God, that's so much. And now I'm like, is that it?
Yeah. Where's my food?
Yeah, I'm starving all the time. Like, please give me more.
So I was thinking, I was looking at your Instagram just before, and it just like it looks like you have so much fun in the gym. Can you talk on like your training partners and your train like all the? I was just seeing in one of the posts that how like fun, like everyone was taking photos and that sort of stuff, and how important it is to have training partners. Because if you're training so much, if you're then by yourself, it can get kind of not draining. But if it's just you by yourself, but then once you add people, it kind of makes it fun. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. I like without a shadow of a doubt could not have done what I have done without those girls and my team and my coach. Like that, I would not have been able to do it. There were days when we would like squats always take a lot of time because we need to get wrapped. Um,
Yeah.
so it would take us 2.5 hours just to do the squats, and then we would have the rest of the session to go. So we would be in the gym on a Saturday for like 5 hours, which that like the day is gone by that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And if I was doing that on my own, I'd have done my squats and I'd have been like, I'm done.
Get
I
me
don't
out.
want to do this anymore. Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah.
So I think it's not only like is it valuable having training partners to drag you through those kind of sessions and to be like, no, come on, remember why you're here. Like we're all in this together. Let's just get it done. But also like on the days when your lifts don't move, like those girls have seen me in every state. Like they've seen me elated for getting a PB, and they've seen me throwing my belt across a room, and hysterically crying, and they've seen it all. And you kind of need somebody there to hold your hand is the wrong term, but just to be like, whatever you're feeling right now is valid, because I felt it too. It's turbulent, like when you're putting yourself under that much strain physically, but also mentally, and there's a lot riding on what you don't always see how intense that can be. And actually having somebody there being like, nope, I get it. I know how much this means to you. I felt this as well. It's invaluable. Like you can't do that on your own. And you have that side of it, and then you have the motivational side of it. Like, so one of my teammates, Ellen, she is an under 52 lifter, tiny little thing,
Yeah.
like the strong, super super strong. She'll like squat 125, and
Yeah.
I'm like, that's absurd to me. Like I can't wrap my head around this small person doing this massive thing. And so I'll see that, and then I'll be like, well, what's my excuse? Like, like I need to now get on and do it. Like anything they can do, I can do. And I'm really lucky in that the girls that I train with, they're also self-employed. So
Yeah.
we all get it. We get that balance of like, yep, we all worked till 9:30 last night and our alarms went off at 5, but we've got to tick the boxes. We've got to get this done. So just having somebody on your team to be like, I'm having a crap day. Like this, I need you to drag me through this. Or I'm having a great day. Let's go out and celebrate and, lift heavy things. And
Yeah.
it's great. It makes it fun, and it makes it like I didn't dread going to do my sessions because I knew that I would be seeing them. And like my coach was brilliant, and like I applaud him because coaching women, like he has male lifters as well, but in this instance, it was just the girls. And coaching women you think is going to be like, oh yeah, it's all fine. Like we would be like burping. I was vomiting into thick bags, like, and then handing it to him. Like we're disgusting. Like we are worse than the men. And we'll be doing that, and then we'll all of a sudden start hysterically crying. And he's like, what is going on here? Like, what is happening? But he manages us so well. Like we are so difficult, and we give it this. We're chatting, 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 and I can see he's just stood there being like, "Can someone please just get under a bar? Like, someone just do something." Um, but I've been working with my coach for 2 years, and we've established that kind of like we have the banter, but there's also the boundary of like when it's time to get it done, we get
Yeah.
it done. Um, like I love going to training because it's like a social event, but with the seriousness of
Yeah,
competing. So
sure.
I think even on if you're not competing, having somebody there, and like I don't think that we ever know our full potential. I think, we always set limits for ourselves, and having somebody there who goes, no, you've got more, you can
Yeah.
do more. Like I probably wouldn't have got that 175 because I didn't think I could do it. I was like, there's no way I can do that. And everyone around me was like, yes, you can, you're going to do it. Like, there's no way you're not getting that. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, then I'll give it a go. So it's invaluable. You can't replace that. And you can't always find that within yourself.
Yeah, no, that's you said like you spoke to that really well then, and it's there was a couple of things that the mindset of not being the one that has to bring that high energy all the time with that training. So if you one day you might bring that high energy, the next day someone else might, and it gets you to the days that you don't want to be there, or not want to be there, you're just down a little bit, and they bring you along, and then the other days you're bringing someone else along, which is great. But then I was also that vibe or that feeling you get when you're at the gym. If you have that feeling of this is awesome, like how fun has it been here? You're gonna want to turn up all the time, aren't you? Like you always want to turn up. Like, if you've got that fun vibe, I think it would make training and it just make the hard times just more fun. Even though they suck and you're grinding and it hurts physically, it hurts mentally. It's still fun.
Yeah. We had like other things we did in our just absurd. Like at one point, one of my friends was in a car park with food scales, like weighing out her meal in the car park. And like another of us was there with like a makeshift funnel out of paper, putting our like, protein powder in a bottle. And it's like, if I was on my own weighing my food in a car park, I would be mortified. I'd be like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But because we were all together, we were like, this is a joke. Like, this is
Yeah,
hilarious.
this is
So
class.
yeah, it takes the edge off. It
Yeah,
doesn't make it so like, oh God, I've got to eat my rice now. It's like, oh, hang on, like just got to weigh my food in the car park kind of thing. It's less serious, and it makes it nicer to turn up when you know that you've got other people who are equally absurd.
yeah. You know, the things you do when you're chasing your goals and your dreams, huh? In the car park, was getting the scales out. Perfect. um, yeah, exactly. I was. There's a few other things I want to touch on, but I was going through the Instagram account, and what is the beneficial what was the thing you were doing? I think you were about 10 days out. It was like peak week, or I can't remember what you called it. But were you maxing out your lifts on that day? Was that what happens? And then what's kind of the benefit? What are we trying to achieve for those that from then and then moving into that comp?
So I think everybody peaks slightly differently. So some people will do like a squat, bench, deadlift, max out. So they'll do their max squat, their max bench, their max deadlift. We do it slightly differently in that we kind of spread it across the week. So we'll do our max squats on one day, our max bench on another, and our max deadlift on another. And we do triples and doubles. So we kind of see what we're capable of, and then we use those triples and doubles to assess what our opening numbers are going to be.
Yeah.
So the theory is it's like, okay, if you can rep that out, like that's a safe opener. So you've got that as a single, it's in the bag.
Okay. Yeah.
But it doesn't quite put the same amount of exertion of like a full max out single RPE 10 squat.
Yeah.
So there's still enough in the bag to recover. And we just spread that across the week. So we can give kind of like our full attention to one lift at a time.
Yeah. So you were doing a just kind of, I just want to, it was just a question on, and kind of, I've got this, I'm just doing my own little goals. I was just thinking of like what how far out. So you how far out before the comp are you doing? Was it 10 days, and then are you, those last 10 days you're obviously still training, but are you just backing it off to make yourself like tip top before that? Yeah.
We did a heavy triples week, a heavy doubles week, and then our final training session of like our peak was on the Thursday, which was like 8 days out from competition. We then had a squat, a bench, and a deadlift day as like a taper. So it was, we were working at like, 50% or 60% of our max. Just to kind of keep the wheels turning, just
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure we were moving well, like, practicing our brace techniques, making sure that we were happy with our bar positions, we were mobilizing, lots of stretching, mobilizing, active recovery, just to keep the body in good shape, but also give it enough time to rest and recover.
Mm.
So by the time we can get on platform, we've had rest, but we're not
Out of
like
out of
stepping on bit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess it'd be, and obviously you've done quite a few comps now, and you kind of know yourself how. Yeah, I feel like it'd take a bit of time to kind of learn that in your own body. I think everyone could maybe be a little bit different, but there's obviously a guideline, but people will be different. But you knowing what your body would react to and that sort of stuff. Had you learned that from previous comps? And have you taken away stuff like that from previous comp days that you were like, I shouldn't have done this then? And what? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you say, everyone's really different. We usually do an empty bar session the day before we compete. So we'll just go through the movement patterns to make sure that we're kind of happy and comfortable. Like, even little things like I pull sumo for my deadlifts, and like, I've done an empty bar session the day before and been like, oh, my hip feels a bit cranky. Okay, I'm going to go and mobilize that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because some people really benefit from having the taper. I could feel that I was benefiting because my body was relaxing, but I also was then like, when I went on under the bar for my warm-ups on comp day, I kind of felt a little bit like jelly-like because I hadn't been under that amount of load for a while. So I was like, oh, like, is this okay? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't done this in a while. So it's it's been tricky because it's been different for every comp I've done. So this time around, when I did my empty bar session, I felt rubbish. Like, I went into the gym and I picked up a 20 kilo bar, and I looked at my friend and I went, that was heavy. And I'm like, I've got to pull 170 the next day. And I'm like, this 20 kilo bar feels heavy. Like, that's a problem. But then the time before, I was in the gym and I was like, the empty bar feels light. I'll put some fives on it. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
really hard to know. But
Yeah.
I think the thing that I've definitely noticed with myself is that if I just stop, then that's detrimental. I need to be moving. I need to be doing something, because otherwise I feel like jelly and I don't feel
Yeah.
like I'm strong enough to do it. I need to do something in the lead up to comp.
Yeah. And especially like something like powerlifting or anything you're training for so long for one event type thing. I could feel like you could get not like a little bit nervous, or because you've been putting so much effort into this, like the one day or of the year, or like maybe you might do. Would you do maybe 2 comps a year, maybe 3 potentially?
Yeah, so I would say normally no more than three.
Yeah.
Um, like, I think the optimal amount is two, because it
Yeah.
gives you enough time in between. We were just unfortunate this year that like the turnaround between nationals and worlds was so short. But I would say probably about two a year is enough.
Yeah. So I just feel like for me, like I used to play like local level, like sport and that sort of stuff, but you play it every week, so it's like, you're not too worried about it because it's every week. But I guess that when it's twice a year and you've put so much into it, I can imagine like, yeah, when you got that bar and you're like, oh, this feels a bit heavier than it should. Like I've got it to. Yeah, I could just imagine it being a bit, a little bit of a mind games and that sort of stuff. But I feel like the more you do it, obviously the better you become at it.
Yeah, and like I've said to everybody, the physical strength is one thing, but if you don't have the mental strength, then you're out. Like
Yeah.
if you tap out and don't have that, like that sort of killer instinct of going in and giving it everything, the bar won't move. You have to be on your A game mentally, otherwise it's twice as hard.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. There's a couple more things. When you kind of, what kind of made you go straight or go into the powerlifting? Was it always something you like enjoyed as a kid, or was it kind of when did you make that turn from like just going to the gym to I could be like really strong?
It was a complete accident. I had some like really cool stories.
Yeah.
It was a complete accident. Like, so my coach Luke, I started working with him just after COVID. I felt like I was coasting in my training, and I was just doing hypertrophy.
Yeah.
And I was in the gym, and I was like, "This, I'm bored. Like, I'm like what I know that I can do, but especially with my job, obviously, I take care of so many other people that I was not worried about my own training. I was like, oh, I can just fit it in wherever. So I contacted Luke. He actually is a funny story. So I posted some content of like a dead cue that I use with clients. And he responded to me and he was like, actually, for sumo, that's wrong. And you would want to give this cue instead. And he was kind of taking the piss at me a little bit. And he said well, he's like, I'd be happy to teach you. And I was like, oh, okay, you taking on clients? And like I was like, yeah, great, teach me. Like I want to know.
Yeah, yeah.
So we ended up working together and we were doing hypertrophy, and I just said, I just want to get stronger. I want to get a little bit leaner and to kind of like feel better in myself because I'm not worried about my own training when I'm not
Yeah.
working with a coach. And then we did a strength block, and it was one of these like, oh, actually, Jess is a lot stronger than we think she is. Like she might have some potential here. And I said to him, because he is a powerlifting coach, when I first met him, I said, you're never going to get me in a singlet. I was like, don't try it. I'm never going to wear a singlet. I'm never going to wear a belt. Like, don't push that because it's not going to happen. And then within the year, I was on a platform. So
Yeah, how
it
did
was
that
just,
happen?
yeah, it literally just, there was a local gym was holding a novice meet. So it was like not a federation, it was just like a come and max out your list and see how you get on. And he was like, I just want you to try it. I just want you to see where your lifts are so that we've got a goal so we can say, okay, like let's try for X amount on your squat, bench, deadlift. Um, and I won the meet. And I came off and I was holding my trophy and I walked right up to him and I was like, we need to register for another comp. I just like, it was like, I caught the bug instantly.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my sport. This is what I should be doing. And I bought a singlet about 2 weeks later. So, yeah, it was just like a complete accident. Like, kind of fell into it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What was the cue of the deadlift? What was it? What was the were you right in the end or was he right?
Yeah, so when I'm teaching the deadlift, I tell my clients to push the floor away. I'm like, push the floor, don't pull with your arms, push it down. But
Yeah.
the picture that I'd used, it was just like on Canva, like stock image. But the person doing this deadlift was in a sumo stance. And I didn't even think about it. I just was like, oh yeah, Canva stock image, fine, matches my aesthetic, whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, actually, for sumo, you want to push the floor apart as opposed to you want to externally rotate through your
Yeah.
hips.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I pull conventional. So, and I only started pulling sumo like maybe 2 months after I started working with him because I'd never pulled sumo before. And actually, that is a really valuable cue. So if you're ever pulling sumo, pull
Push
the
it
floor
apart.
apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Oh, then the things you know, huh? The last thing I wanted to touch on was, I guess, who did you kind of learn? Obviously, you like you're doing your Cert 3 and Cert 4. Who are you people you learned from, or books that you kind of read that kind of gave you the knowledge that you know now? Obviously, doing it so much now, you'd know, but like early on and it's all, you're always learning, so there's always stuff to learn. Who did you kind of, was there like a few people you had in mind, or there was lots of people, or yeah?
So I am a sucker for learning. The Mind Pump podcast, I don't know whether you've listened to that.
No.
Um, it's these three American guys. They're brilliant. Like they do like various episodes on, they'll either focus on one topic or they'll have Q&As. They're brilliant. They always have really good guests on. So they have like, people to do with like gut health, and they have people to do with powerlifting and weightlifting. And
Yeah, cool.
so that's something that I've consumed a lot of. Like their podcast is great. The Prescript, I don't know if you've heard of Prescript.
Nah.
Jordan Shallows, he is actually an ex-powerlifter. He's really good. Like my partner's just finished their level 1 course. That's really good. I was reading, what did I read? When I first got into strength training, God, I can't remember now. I can't remember his name. That's really embarrassing. But my partner is like, he has like a library, so he would just be like, read this, read this, read this. But definitely, I was consuming a lot of like podcasts, lots of Instagram content. I'm better at listening and looking, because I never have the time to sit down and read. So like I was following like Meg Squats. She's an ex-powerlifter. She's brilliant. Steffi Cohen.
She's a
like incredible. Tia Toomey, so her partner Shane. Like obviously he's a coach, so I follow a lot of stuff that he does.
They're great together. They're funny as their YouTube channel.
Yeah. Like love it. That kind of stuff. Like I want to like, and especially because of the level that like Tia trains at, like it's that's something that I'm like, okay, well, how do they do that? Like, how does she give that much so often? So I like, it's kind of people that like I look at and respect, or like whether they be athletes or coaches. I always want to know like, okay, well, why, or like how? And so podcasts and Instagram content has been my main thing. But definitely like the Mind Pump guys were my first kind of like entry level into learning. I was like, oh, this is actually really beneficial. And then there's a woman called Jolene Brighton. She's actually a female hormone specialist doctor, but she came onto the podcast and was talking a lot about like women's health, which then got me really into understanding like women's health and strength training, because obviously with our there's so much fluctuation. So then she led me to this person, who then I followed this person on Instagram. So there was always something more to consume.
Yeah, for sure. I feel even just in the last, I'm, what am I, 30 now or 31, and I really started to get into like strength training and that when we were about 23, 24, and just the difference. But so it's about probably 6-7 years ago, but the difference between the content back then compared to like how much more the content is available now. There's just so much, and it's you can find stuff kind of everywhere. But even like back then, it was not tough to find, but you wouldn't find many people talking about different things. It was all like, let's do 3x8 on the bench press and like, and that. But now, obviously, there's so much more stuff, and we fell into the Louis Simmons, the West Side Barbell. So we fell into that pretty heavy when we were like 24, 25 and that sort of stuff, and it's kind of grown from there. There's another guy, I spoke to Katie about this, the Huberman Lab, I'm pretty sure, and he's great. He just chats to people and he gets really cool people on and stuff. And similar, so I'll check out. What was it? The Mind Pump. We'll check.
I've just remembered Mike Israetel. I don't know whether you've heard of him.
Yeah, Mike Israetel, he's great.
Yeah. So like the RP Strength podcast, I was always listening to that, and like I think it's so my next sort of, I'm going to venture into the Juggernaut training systems for powerlifting. I'm going to look at that because where I kind of fell into powerlifting, there's all this like stuff out there that I haven't ever touched on, and people are like, oh, have you read this and have you looked at this? And I'm like, no. Like, I need to now though, because it's obviously a very important part of my life. So but the Mind Pump guys are good, so I check them out.
Yeah, I'll check them out, and I'll get a few of those podcasts and put them under the YouTube vid and the Spotify and all that sort of stuff. And I guess the last thing before we go, and I touched on it before we got on, because as a new and growing podcast, it's always hard to get guests on, and that's when you first start. But the question is, who do you think would be good for the podcast? But the side caveat to that is, you have to try and get them on for us.
I've got two. This is really tricky. I was thinking I've got.
We can get them both on. I've got plenty of time.
So my best friend Emily, she is a bodybuilder, but she ruptured her Achilles a couple of years ago. So she has kind of like built her, and like her range of motion is better than mine now. It's actually quite embarrassing. But she is also a business mentor, and she runs like 3 of her own businesses. So I think she would be a really good person for you to chat to, because she is very business and fitness oriented. And then my boyfriend Mike he's like a walking encyclopedia. He would be able to offer you like he sometimes says things and I'm like, where did you come from? Like, how do you know that? He's been on his own fitness. Yeah, genuinely. I'm like, where did you? And he's like, oh, I just heard it like 3 years ago and retained this piece of information. But he's been on his own fitness and business journey, so he'd be a really cool guy to speak to.
Nah, awesome. I'll hit you up after the pod a bit, and we'll get those both on. But honestly, thank you so much for coming on. We had a bit of a battle getting it on together. I was an hour early, and it was absolute dramas, but we made it happen. But thank you so much for coming on. And do you want to say anything before we head off, or any last comments before we kind of go, or?
No, just thank you for having me. It's actually been really like, this is the first conversation I've had like post comp about powerlifting and like about the journey to get here. So it's actually been really nice for me as well, just to kind of like word vomit to you. So thank you for having me.
No worries. All good. We'll speak soon. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.